Hello everyone. In today's lecture, we will discuss about consumption and consumerist lifestyle. So, let's understand this issue at a glance. So, what are the drivers of consumption? The global consumption levels and patterns are driven at the most fundamental level by rapid global population growth. Well, population of 9 billion is expected by year 2050. The rise in global affluence and associated consumption, the global middle class expected to triple by 2030. Low income consumers represents a market of US dollar 5 trillion. A culture of consumerism among higher income groups who account for the greatest per capita share of global consumption. So this is about related with the like a global actually drivers of consumption. Let's see the global consumption patterns and impacts. Global consumption is putting unsustainable and increasing stress on the Earth's ecosystem. 70% of the Earth's ecosystem services have been degraded in the past 50 years. The supply of energy and material resources needed for industry growth, natural resource consumption, is expected to rise to 170% of the Earth's biocapacity by 2040. That means this is going to exceed by 70% of what Earth can apply, what Earth can supply. The human social systems and well-being. Human well-being does not necessarily rely on high levels of consumption. Well, it is a proven fact that the human well-being is not necessarily related with the high consumption of like material or the resources. Third, the role of the consumer. The consumer attitude and behavior. Consumers are increasingly concerned about environmental, social, and economic issues, and increasingly willing to act on those concerns. Consumer willingness often does not translate into sustainable consumer behavior because of a variety of factors such as availability, affordability, convenience, product performance, conflicting priorities, skepticism, and force of habit. So these are the actually relations with the consumer. So the how the consumer is going to drive this whole consumeristic actually approach is lot depends on the consumer itself. Let's see the fourth one, the role of businesses like a mainstreaming like sustainable consumption. The business case, the business approaches to sustainable consumption can be grouped into three broad categories: innovation, choice influencing, and choice editing. Let's see. Innovation, like a business processes for the development of new and improved products, services, and businesses, are shifting to incorporate provisions for maximizing societal value and minimizing environmental costs. Choice influencing, the use of marketing communications and awareness raising campaigns to enable and encourage consumers to choose and use products more efficiently and sustainably. Choice editing, the removal of unsustainable products and services from the marketplace. Okay, let's go to the fifth point, the challenge ahead and options for change. To be able to lead sustainable lifestyle based on informed purchasing decisions and changes in behavior, consumers need the support of all actors in society, business, government, and civil society. Business sees a need for like a further dialogue with stakeholders such as like consumers, retailers, marketers, policymakers, NGOs, and between businesses to define sustainable products and lifestyle and to formulate actionable responses. The last one, stakeholders consulted in the development of this document tell us that leading businesses have the capacity to mainstream sustainable consumption and welcome the opportunity to work alongside business moving forward. So let's see these points in detail. There was a study actually of consumers globally actually report like a greater propensity to buy from companies with a reputation for environmental responsibility. So these are the actually percentages of the respondents who agreed to buy actually the companies who actually work in the response to the like environmentally conscious actually design and products. In this slide, you can see why consumers are sometimes unwilling to pay more for like environmental performances. Well, the reasons are given on the left side. You can see the first and foremost with the biggest contribution actually comes from the lack of understanding of problem, threat, or value. The next one, comfortable lifestyle and greed. The third one talks about like associated high costs, perceived higher taxes. Then selfish entitlement, tragedy of the commons, history, current, past prices, culture of free, So these are the actually traits, these are the actually features which are associated with the actually why consumers are sometimes unwilling to pay more for the environmental performances, because they are simply not aware of the consequences which the products are causing in general. Well, there are several other reasons also you can see, like a short-term thinking, rewards like not obvious, apathy, indifference, poverty, lack of political will, leadership, social inequality, rich versus poor, unequal spread of cost, being voluntary as versus being like regulated. So these are the few like insights drawn from the like public, which helps us to like how we can strategize our efforts in countering actually these kind of like perceptions and inhibitions from the like a mindset of the consumers, because this is the one of the actually opportunities areas where we can strategize and formulate our actually action points to rework our like products and manufacturing sector. So for like a more suitable consumption, there is like a this is the like a business approach. It's divided into like a three major components of like innovation, choice influencing, and choice editing. Let's see one by one. So innovation says like increasing the availability of more sustainable products and services through integrating actually sustainability and life cycle processes into the product design innovation that doesn't compromise on quality, price, or performance in the market. Choice influencing, it says like creating actually market of sustainable products and business models by working in the partnership with the consumers and other actually key stakeholders to demonstrate that the sustainable products and life cycle deliver superior performance at the best prices, using marketing actually communications to influence consumer choice and behavior. The third one, like a choice editing, it says like editing out unsustainable products, product components, processes, and business model in partnership with other actors in society, such as like policymakers and retailers. So here actually I have taken actually case example from the country of like a Poland. So how they are actually driving the sustainable consumption in Poland. Let's have a look. One good example over here is the consumer education campaign, Buy Responsibly, Your Money Shapes the World. So this was actually tagline given for this campaign, targeting like young people and conducted by the Polish Green Network and Gaia Club. In 10 of the countries, like 16 world shapes like regions, it offered school lessons in eco-friendly and society-friendly consumer behavior, covering these subjects. These are the following subjects which they offered in the like schools as lessons. Marketing basics with emphasis on manipulation techniques, because marketing, we know marketing is a science of like understanding the market. At the same time, they manipulate also like they use actually manipulative techniques also to influence, to exert influence in the mindset of the consumers. Like advertising is one of the tools which marketing actually companies use to entice actually consumers to buy products. The next one, sustainable products and their marketing, like eco labeling, local and organic food, water saving and consumption rationalization, waste products like types of packaging and their environmental impact, segregation and recovery, etc., energy and its impact on climate, fair trade and corporate social responsibility, etc. So these are the actually topics which the Polish actually agencies, this agency, this Polish Green Network actually tried actually delivering in the like schools and like other places for like a better awareness. Let's see like a what are the other actually researchers actually talk about these aspect. So here one of this is, it talks about like we are jeopardizing our future by not reining in our intense but geographically and demographically uneven material consumption, by failing to adequately limit population growth, reassess the low role of an like a economy rooted in growth, reduce greenhouse gases, incentivize renewable energy, protect habitat, restore ecosystems, curb pollution, halt deforestation, and constrain invasive alien species. Humanity is not taking the urgent steps needed to safeguard our imperialist biosphere. For example, it is mentioned over here, like even like containing the invasive species, because what happens is sometimes like the animal species, sometimes the like a plant species, they move to the like a unknown, like unnative like location, and they start actually growing over there in a huge quantity. In turn, they actually end up killing or disturbing the actually local balance of the the species which are existing prior to actually the arrival of this alien species. So it is very important to curb actually such actually movements also of different species to the alien worlds. So this was actually said in the World Scientist Warning to the Humanity. This was actually a second notice. So this can be this article can be referred at this location, as given here. So how actually the consumerism is being driven in the society? There are some more actually examples I would like to bring to you. Like a shifting consumers to behave actually sustainably is one of the actually approaches where we can start bringing some change in the mindset of the people. So here in this actually slide I would like to mention, like at the first glance it might appear that the goals and assumptions of marketing are incomplete with the goals and assumptions of sustainability. Traditional marketing encourages growth, promotes the endless quest for satisfying actually needs and wants, and seem to view resources as ever abundant. In contrast, a sustainability actually focus suggests that utilized resources can be renewed by mimicking the circular flows of resources in nature, and it represents the fact that capacity of both resources and the environment are limited. We argue that because of this apparent contradiction, marketing and sustainability are inextricably intertwined. What is eco-labeling? Let's see. Eco-labeling is one of the means of conveying information about the sustainable attributes of a product. Labels that are attention like a grabbing, easily understandable and consistent across like a categories can enable consumers to make better informed eco-friendly decisions. It has been suggested that eco labels would be more effective if they were contrasted against negative labels that highlight products with environmentally harmful attributes. Eco labeling can seem more transparent and unbiased if it is certified by a third party that validates the sustainability claims. However, it is important to note that some work suggests eco labels do not play a strong role in predicting consumer food selections. Well, so these are the some observations. These are the some actually research outputs by several researchers. So this is how actually eco labeling can be actually taken into the market. So here there's another actually researcher. He says like a conscious consumerism is a lie. Here's a better way to help save the world. Let's see what he says. Instead of buying expensive organic sheets, donate that money to organizations that are fighting to keep agriculture runoff to our rivers. Next, instead of driving to organic apple orchard to pick your own fruit, use that time to volunteer for an organization that combats food deserts. Instead of buying a $200 air purifier, donate to politicians who support policies that keep our air and water clean. Instead of signing a petition demanded that Subway remove one obscure chemical from its sandwich bread, call your local representatives to demand they overhaul the approval process for the estimated 80,000 untested chemicals in our products. Instead of taking yourself out to dinner at a farm to table restaurant, you could take an interest in the farm bill and how to incentivize unhealthy eating. So well, there are several actually ways through which you can channel your like intentions. You can strategize to rework the prevalent actually model of this consumerism which is happening across the world right now. So how you and me can actually put our efforts, that is where actually the our actually the whole goal actually lies. In this particular slide, if you see, this talks about consumption and wealth, a culture of consumerism. So here, if you see this actually graph on the left side, it talks about footprint by national average per person income. So this is a chart between the data is between like a year 1961 to 2003. So here, this like a red line shows the like high income countries, blue line by like a blue line by for like a middle income countries and a green line for like a low income countries. So there if you see that like a global hectare per person, like this is the data from like a year 2003. So for like a low income countries it is less than 1. For like a middle income countries it is between 1 to 2 but not above 2, and for like a high income countries it is like a between a range of like a 3 to 6, which is very high. So this is the like a consumers in wealthy countries account for the greatest actually per capita environmental footprint. So this is very like direct and evident that the wealthy countries, they exert a higher actually global like a per person like a environmental footprint. So how this we can relate it with the well-being? So well-being is not necessarily correlated with high levels of consumption, because these countries, like the high income countries, there's a high spending countries, they suffer also like with the several like lifestyle diseases these days. So how this actually article says over here, let's see. The New Economics actually Foundation's Happy Planet Index ranks a nation's progress based on the amount of the earth resources its inhabitants use and the length and happiness of people's like lives. Although this is a contentious area of research, it yields some interesting insights. According to the study, a high consumption level does not necessarily guarantee happiness. Well, we have seen actually these studies in our previous lectures, like how happiness is more important than the GDP per person. Because in the overall like purpose of the life, what does anyone want is the happiness and satisfaction. So this research actually claims that people can live long, happy without actually using more than their fair share of the earth's resources. While no country combines high GDP with the low life satisfaction, many poorer countries actually achieve levels of life satisfaction just as high as if you see that there are two like observations points given over here, like it exceeds Earth's average capacity per person. High development, they are like a wealthier neighbors, and the second one talks about above a minimum level there is no apparent actually correlation between per capita GDP and life satisfaction. So this actually gives us this direct like a insight that a higher GDP doesn't necessarily means like the happiness is more or the satisfaction levels are more. So that in turns like relates this to this hypothesis that the higher consumption rates are not going to give the desired actually happiness. So in this slide, we will discuss like expectation of businesses industrialized and emerging economies. So there are actually key areas given on the left side, and expectations in the industrial countries and expectations in the emerging economies. So what are those things? Let's see one by one. On the economic development like area, the industrial countries they should remain competitive and offer development opportunities to the emerging economies. And what these emerging economies should do is to contribute to the country's development, especially in structurally like weak regions. On the ethics and management area, promote the adoption of environmental and social standards throughout the value chain, especially among suppliers. Create transparency regarding economic, ecological, and social aspects of corporate activities, especially in emerging economies. Support human rights. In the emerging economies, it works out as like act ethically and legally, establish high environmental and social standards, and set an example for suppliers and competitors. Help to build management competencies and institutions. On the in the area of like employees and jobs, promote job security through employee training and development. Proactively address challenges like equal opportunity and population aging. For the emerging new economies, create jobs and train employees, ensure occupational safety and health protection, promote and raise employee awareness of environmental protection. In the next key area of products and marketing, ensure product safety, offer quality products at fair prices, promote sustainable consumption through ethically and ecologically sound products, and by informing consumers and raising their awareness. For the emerging economies, it is said that develop and market quality products for those at the bottom of the affluence pyramid. Ensure that products are safe and environmentally compatible. Consider the cultural and social context. Well, these are the traits which are necessary for any sustainable practices. Let's go to the next one. This key area of like resource efficiency and climate protection talks about for the industrial economies as a stronger focus on products, dematerialization of the economy by moving from product to service oriented business models. This we will discuss in more detail in the lens chapter. Further point, help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. For the emerging economies, it talks about like a transfer know-how and modern energy and resource conserving technologies. Satisfy growing consumer needs with products that use limited resources efficiently. The last one, social commitment, key area. So this is meant for like industrial countries that work toward meeting the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, UNSDGs, help to solve social problems also by encouraging employee volunteering, support and promote in particular disadvantaged children and young people, raise public awareness of environmental protection, promote education and research for sustainable development. This slide talks about the consumers favor cost efficient or convenient behavior changes over others that would see like a more carbon but requires a sacrifice. So here we will see like there is a comparison actually chart given on the like a x and y axis. It ranges from like a low CO2 impact to a very high like a CO2 impact, like a 0 kg like a per household to like a 1000 kg per household. And on the left and right side it talks about like a low proportion of population like 0% to like 100% like a high proportion of the population. So let's see which are those corners and which are these bubbles which are going to affect. So on the left bottom corner, if we see, this is the low impact and uncommon behavior. On the right top bottom, if we see, right top corner, if we see, that is the actually high impact and common behavior. So in this one there are like these bubbles given, like if we like eat more food that is like locally in season, so obviously there will be very little CO2 impact, CO2 emission. If we install like a micro generation, okay, that will be of like a comparatively like a lower CO2 emission, but will be very little number of actually population is going for that. You know, adopt lower impact diet, well there are very fewer number of like population is doing that. Well, it has also like a respectable like amount of like a CO2 emissions causing due to this. On the top portion, if you see, avoid unnecessary flights. So these flights and high efficient like vehicles, you know, and these are the actually major actually impacting entities as far as like a impact of like a CO2 is concerned. In this slide we will talk about like the roles of the government, consumers and businesses in fostering sustainable consumption. So the first one, if you see on the in the blue actually this drop, this talks about international agreements, national policies, framing laws and regulations, you know, planning fiscal structures and incentives, infrastructure and services, you know, such as like transport, recycling, etc. Guidance for businesses and consumers, monitoring, enforcement. So these are the actually tasks majorly assigned for like governments and regulators. Okay, on the left side, if you see the what could be the role of the businesses. Economic development, legal compliance, ethical practices, sustainable sourcing, production and distribution, eco-efficiency and waste reduction, consumer choice editing, consumer choice influencing, recycling, innovation, example setting. At the bottom, if you see what could be the role of the civil society, NGOs, etc., independent assessment, high profile public campaign, critique or endorsement, thought leadership, choice influencing. On the right side, if you see in the red color, what could be the role of the consumers? Purchasing decisions, lifestyle choices, political support, peer-to-peer influencing. So these are the actually probable rules which these like stakeholders can adopt for like a better workmanship for this moving towards like a sustainable development goals. With this, we are coming to the end of this lecture. Thank you, everyone.